Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1469 of the daily content grind. It's kind of scary to realize that in a month, I'll have done this for 1,500 days in a row. Help me. Quick, everyone watching, drop $1 a month in Patreon so I don't have to grind myself to death anymore. I'm kidding. I know it's tough for a lot of people. I'm not asking anyone to do that. I do appreciate the people who can. But you guys keep supporting, so I keep doing goofy little videos like this and saying inflammatory things to get you to make comments and raise the algorithm for me. Things like, I think the Aerialbots suck. Maybe not suck, but the Aerialbots are consistently the most dull of the combiner groups. I mean, you look at some of the others, like you've got way more color going on. You've got more variety going on, When you look at the Aerialbots, it's hard to remember who is who sometimes. I remember Slingshot's the one with the orange head. Can I tell Air Raid from Fireflight on short notice? Probably not. Probably not. 3 of them in this shot are in the exact same color schemes and almost the identical color layout. What am I supposed to do with this? I mean, you don't get that with other you don't get that with other teams, Like, there are teams that have like similar color schemes, like the Technobots and the Predacons, but they have the sensibility to have very different alt modes from each other and have some kind of variety. On top of the fact that their color schemes are nearly identical, you also have jets that are very much similar to each other. I'm not going to set off every aeronautics aficionado that's watching this video right now by saying, oh, they all just kind of look like the same jet. I'm saying that if I'm a kid at a toy store, I'm seeing 4 of these jets lined up, 5 technically with Silverbolt, and I'm just going to grab the one with the colors I like best, and I'm probably never bothering with the other 3 because it's just kind of the same toy. That also is a factor that hurts it a lot, because they are just kind of standard fighter jets, It's one reason why they are limited in color, because it's limited to what the more realistic colors of those vehicles would be, but it's also limited in transformation. And part of that is because of the combiner gimmick, but also just, for instance, they all kind of work the same way as toys. I can't even say I would get bored to death playing with the G1s because they're all basically work the same way. No, I get bored to death of playing with all the modern ones too. It doesn't help that our modern ones basically 2 molds across 4 figures. Point is, the Aerialbots are suffering, they don't offer the variety that the other combiner groups have. So let's start doing what I love doing. We'll just start reimagining things, which of course means I'm assigning new alt modes. So let's start with our boy Slingshot. There's always that one guy in the combiner group that gets to be the guy, the one with the standout personality that gets episode focus, and it's Slingshot. He is a braggart, he is a loudmouth, he is a show-off, and it's all overcompensation because he is the smallest, weakest of any of the Aerialbots. So for him, see, I'm trying to keep it I want to keep the things that are in line with the personality the characters are supposed to have, because I genuinely feel like the vehicle mode should inform the personality of the Transformer, right? It should fit them, So for him, I'm basically going to let him keep his jet mode. We're just going to go with a standard Harrier for this, not only because, yeah, it works for the name Slingshot with the way it moves, but also I need some normal jet amongst the Aerialbots, because I am going to be playing around with this quite a lot. And the Harrier does accomplish something else that comes along with reimagining the Aerialbots, which is avoiding looking like a Seeker. I do think he is different enough from the standard Seekers that he can pass for just a different guy and not get lumped in or some weird thing. I'm basically, again, trying to make the Aerialbots unique and stand out. That doesn't just mean avoid the other, Aerialbots and keep them from looking the same. That also means avoiding the other aerial transformers around here. I wanted to have a Thunderbolt in the lineup, but that encroaches on Power Glide, so we didn't have that one there. So yeah, at least one standard jet had to remain. That said, if I was going to completely reimagine him and base off the name Slingshot and being a show-off, it would have been an Osprey. I feel like that would fit his personality as well, don't you? Because it's a very show-offy vehicle. Oh, I can take off and move in all directions. Ha ha! I don't know if I'm a helicopter or not. Ha ha! Being goofy at this point. Okay, so we'll get him out of the way. How about Air Raid? So if we're going by his intended personality and bio, he is more the daredevil of the group. He charges into enemies. He will buzz by enemies. He will fly very recklessly. He is amusing himself in the process. So I needed to pick some vehicle that had flight and that would be very, very good at being very, very annoying. Being if an enemy were to be charged by said vehicle. What I landed on is a familiar one that I like a lot, which is the Nighthawk. Now, yeah, it kind of defies the whole stealth vehicle thing, where he's just like diving in to make himself known. But what an ambush, right? I'm flying in as this stealth jet, and oh my god, now there's something flying right in my head. I think if he's going for maximum amusement, I feel like he's a troll. And if an Aerialbot's going to be a troll, he's going to use a stealth jet to do it. I feel like that's correct. More to the point, though, Air Raid gets to be the one black jet amongst the Aerialbots, so color scheme-wise, I really don't care about any of these, right? In the real-world setting, there are very specific colors for all of these vehicle models. I don't care. I'm interested in the toy looking good, and I'm interested in the character coming across. So we're just going to kind of, imagine that the color scheme, for the most part, is the same. And we could just apply that to the vehicles as needed. It's like a white Harrier make a lot of sense? No, but it still kind of works. But that said, for Air Raid, since it's a stealth vehicle, I felt like keeping it black was important, so we do maintain the black color scheme there. How about Skydive? So Skydive is kind of the scholar amongst them. Personality-wise, he would rather be reading about combat rather than actually participating in combat. Makes him very knowledgeable, makes him a historian, makes him a very good strategist. And makes him the smartest of the Aerialbots, even if he's too humble to admit it. So what I need here, I need something a little bit more historic. And I want something that stands out from amongst the rest of the Aerialbots for him, so I have gone with another of my favorites that we don't see a lot. I've gone with the Lightning. I feel like if anyone can appreciate, a more classic aerial vehicle, it is going to be Skydive. And this one, I think, works pretty well for that. Again, I think the gray color scheme on this one would actually look pretty good. I mean, this one, the character, I think, would come across pretty well. It's just a cool jet, isn't it? It's just a cool jet. We've only gotten this twice. We got it, well, obviously we got it for, was it Hunt for the Decepticons that they actually did the highbrow using that mold, and then it got repainted once or twice. And then we had, I want to say Ransack. Don't quote me on that. That's in that very late G1 era of like, we're still making Transformers, but we haven't quite given up and done Action Masters yet phase. But there has been this vehicle. There've been a Lightning a few times in Transformers. It's definitely one of those vehicles that no one has claimed. You'll get that a lot from me if you watch my videos about like finding new alt modes for different Transformer characters, is finding those vehicles that aren't claimed, because, Hound's always going to be the Jeep in the Autobots. Mirage is always going to be the Formula One car in the Autobots. Just as Dragstrip is going to be the Formula One car in the Decepticons, or sometimes Crasher now. But the point being, is one of those vehicles that no one ever really touches. It's a super cool looking jet, but we very rarely get a Transformer that's like, this is my identity. This is my vehicle mode. Everyone get off. I call dibs. So it's high time we had something that actually did that. I want this one in rotation a little bit more. That moves us on to Fireflight. Now, I almost switched my choices for Skydive and Fireflight, but for a few reasons, I decided to keep it. I decided to switch things around. I decided to change plans at the last second. Fireflight is something of a dreamer. He is the one with imagination. He's the one that appreciates the beauty of the planet that he is on. So for him, I wanted something that went a little bit more toward allowing him to take it all in, which frankly with fighter jets, you can't really do. They move too fast to take in the world around you. But what solves that is if I make him a Hind. And I need to make him a Hind because I needed a helicopter big enough to compete with the jets that I am choosing. It needs to be somewhat close in size scale here. Again, aeronautic experts who will know all these vehicles, don't tell me if these are radically different in size. Okay, we still haven't justified Bruticus as far as scaling vehicles go. I ultimately don't care. I'm just trying to keep everyone in the mix different and unique and fun amongst everybody. And this is the one thing that I think Combiner Wars got correct when it came to the Aerialbots. Desperately needs a helicopter in there in order to have some variety amongst the team. Desperately needed. And Fireflight, if he is the type to just kind of take a look around and observe and just enjoy the scenery, a helicopter that can fly in place is perfect for this. And we go to play with the name a little bit too, because a Hind is heavily armed as helicopters go. I also like it because it does have the wings off the side. They're mostly there mounted for the weaponry, but I do like having those there so you can still put the silhouette and the familiar details on. You can make it look like Fireflight's wings, even though they do not function as wings in the same way they used to. But yeah, we definitely need a helicopter in the Aerialbots. Maybe an Alpha Bravo repaint down the line just for the folks who are still attached to him. That I think would be completely fair. I think that would be completely fair. And that brings us to the leader, Silverbolt. This is another one that we should all know pretty well by now. He does have a command to him, very much looks up to Optimus, but also scared of heights. The irony of it. That almost made me choose an Osprey for him, because I figure it's hard to be scared of heights when you are in far more control over your height in the way that you fly. But he does need to be larger. And a Concorde is cool, but we can go cooler, right? We can be better at this, right? We're making him a Blackbird, which again, color-wise, is going to be so wrong. I don't care. I think you can even get away with leaving this thing black because Silverbolt mostly wears his vehicle on his back. So I don't think it's really all that necessary. But that said, I genuinely feel like this is one of the coolest jets to ever exist. I genuinely feel like this is one of my favorite jets of all time. And it's got the mass. Like it's a very thin jet. Like horizontally, it's a very thin jet. But as a toy, you would get the mass that Silverbolt needs to be the largest of the group, as well as the center of a combiner, right? So that was what I was going for. It needs to be in there. It needs to be in there. That is one that we have had. We've literally had, like, we've had toys that were similar to Blackbirds, and then we had Jetfire from Revenge of the Fallen, who is very literally a licensed Blackbird. But it's still one of those vehicles where, like, you could have someone else use it too. And I would love to see Silverbolt being the one doing this. I love this idea. Now, if you're familiar with my rearranging these, my reassign alt mode videos in the past, you're going to wonder where the certain things are. Obviously, a dome racer is not going to come up in a video about the Aerialbots. However, probably wondering about another one that I say is popular but never belongs to anybody, and that is a stealth bomber, a flying wing, essentially. So I had to fit that in somewhere, right? So I thought, this guy is supposed to be the counterpoint to Menasor. Let's take a nod from Menasor. What if we make that stealth bomber the chest plate? Just as Menasor uses a car, Superion can use a jet. Said jet could potentially carry the bulk of all the extra combiner parts. Yeah, it might be built in. The hands might be built into the body of the jet. The feet might clip on as under kibble on the underside of the vehicle. Or you could play around with just like the mass of this thing. Wings and panels could open up and fold together to create more like Superion's natural chest when it's attached. You know, that way it still looks correct, still looks like the guy, but you get to use a stealth bomber as his chest armor. In my perfect little world of I get to do whatever I want with the Transformer franchise, this thing would actually be able to come up and attach to his back as a wing pack, so Superion could actually fly. In some fiction, Superion can fly, but when I'm made of jets, I feel like flight should not only be something that is frequently brought up as my main advantage, I feel like it should be the one advantage I have over every other combiner. I don't think any other combiner should be able to fly except for the one made of frickin' jets, right? So I would make it like a spotlight it. I'm like, hey, this Superion version of mine actually could potentially fly. You know, he actually has the shape for it, the wings for it. So yeah, that's how I get my stealth bomber in there. But we have a few other issues that we should address if we are going to be redoing these guys. I mean, I don't mind that they have this unified color scheme in their combined mode. I do wish there was a little bit more variety going on, you know, like just like, I'm not sure what color it would be, but I would add some kind of pop of color to him somewhere, maybe like a sky blue that runs through some of these guys, just because, you know, it's a little bit too plain. It's a little bit, I'm not using that as a joke. I'm not using that as a pun. I apologize. But yeah, just it's grays and red. You know, that's basically what I got with this guy. Like, with a little bit of orange poking through, but really red is really the only non-monochrome color he's got going on. At least my Technobots mixed it up a little bit more than that. So I do think he needs color, right? I also feel like there's always something that could be done better with his bulk and kibble. You know, I don't like the nose cones just kind of sticking up off of the shoulders. I would kind of like to see if I could angle those and make wide shoulders instead. What bugs me the most, and what's always bugged me about Aerialbots, is the wings. Why are the wings always folded out on this combiner, which just gives him these like weird triangle kibbles that are hanging off of his limbs? Why aren't we designing this guy to have those fold over and make solid looking forearms and shins for his combined mode? We can go a step further. You can make the wings rotate so the underside has matching detail to create the forearms or the lower legs. And that way, in vehicle mode, they can still look like they're normal jets, but in combined mode, they've got unique detail that makes the robot look more solid and more consistent. You could do that. You could absolutely do that. I have even saved room for some of these things in my choices, you know? So you'd have to mix up the order a little bit, but yeah, but if you use Air Raid and Slingshot for the arms, you could still have wings that end up on the forearms and then fold over, make forearms look good, that kind of thing. Also, and this is a personal one, yeah, just take a look. I wanted to bring up Lio Kaiser just as an example of like better things to do with the nose cones, better things to do with the wings. I like how this kind of design just kind of flows all those wings together. He still has little triangles coming off the forearms. That's the tail fins, right? But I thought this was a far better use of the wings, you know? Like they learned in that time. So I'd kind of like to see something done better, you know? Like you could imagine Superion having similar details, not like copying Lio Kaiser, but at the very least being a little bit more creative than just making it hang off of his arms. It looks kind of sloppy that way. And then there is the biggest thing for me, and that is the head is just kind of dull. It's just a round helmet head and a faceplate. And the faceplate doesn't even go all the way up to his nose. It's like weirdly sunken down. Now, obviously, this is the fun, you know, this is, I was about to say Funimation. Man, it's been a long day. It's been a long day at the shop. But the Sunbow design here, yeah, obviously they have to emulate that because it's Age of the Primes. They have to go cartoon accurate with this. Doesn't look great, though. I don't think the Combiner War one looked that much better. That one was closer to how the original toy looked, and that one was okay. It's very Diaclone in design. But I feel like the Sunbow one, you could absolutely bump up. Like, the design itself is already a little bit close to how, like, modern jet fighter helmets look. And there's some cool details you could incorporate to make it look more like that and make the head look a little bit more thematic for the Aerialbots, but also still kind of familiar at the same time. So you could add that mouth, that gas mask piece. You could make the eyes look more like rounded lenses, you know. Things like that. Things like that could be implemented. And I kind of wish they were, you know, like, kind of wish they leaned into it just a little bit more, because the head design's always been just a little boring to me. So, yeah, we've gone on long enough. I will cap it off there. So, yeah, it's one of those things where we're kind of stuck in the G1 stuff sells, so it has to be as G1 as possible. But if we were still in that era of experimentation, this is absolutely something I could see them doing. I would love to see what you would do with just taking the Aerialbots from the ground up and figuring out something brand new with them. It's not impossible. It's not undoable. I think I'm on to a few things here. And hey, even if we're painting them up like the normal Aerialbots, we can still do the weird thing of like recasting all of them in their real world colors. So then you end up with a Superion that's black gray with hits of like green camo, which again would look really weird, but it's different. I want more different stuff. So those are the ideas in my head at the moment. Let me know in the comments section below what you think, if I'm on the right track, if I'm an idiot. That is your right to do in the comments section. Thank you everyone for watching. I will see you next time.
Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.